The recording thing.
Oh yeah, it's still recording because it's just on Zoom. Awesome. Now it's recording. Oh wait, hold on. Yes. Okay. All right. So let me go ahead and kick things off then. So welcome everybody. This is our first technical talk for Tampa Devs. We're collaborating with React.js Tampa Bay with Lydia and I can't remember the organizers' names. And Jordan, sorry, I couldn't remember. And Jordan. And this is through the React.js Tampa Bay meetup group. And then I also would like to thank ReliQuest for sponsoring the venue. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
So yeah, just real quick, ReliQuest, what we do is provide security for enterprises, mostly on the defensive side. We do.
Do you want to stand here actually? Because then they can see you.
People can see. So we do mostly on the defensive side. So Fortune 1000 companies really are responsible for making sure that we're monitoring their security environment. We've got a whole group of analysts. If those of you that are here in person might have saw them over in that room. Basically, they're watching for things happening in people's environments, and then we'll escalate those alerts. From a dev standpoint, we do have a product platform or technology platform that we do development here. Probably nowhere near as probably big as where you guys are coming from other companies, but we do a lot of data analytics. So very, very heavy data. You can imagine all the data coming off of your firewalls and your cloud environments and your applications. Basically, it's making sense of all those log files. So we have a very large, data engineering, DevOps group, DevSecOps, all those guys that are probably, helping us do that, as well as developing our front end, which is, kind of what we use to do a lot of that incident response. So a little bit of dev, probably not so much as what you guys are used to, but that's us. And then after, Tara in the back, anyone that's interested in talking with potential dev positions, we do have some open. So
perfect. So my name is Tara Glentz. I'm a talent source on the recruiting team here. So recruiting, doing just that, looking for this type of DevOps people, software engineers, all that stuff. So we're actually hiring right now for DevOps. If you guys are interested or looking or know anyone who is, definitely come talk to me after. I have some business cards here. I can give you guys some information, just kind of run through from there. But yeah, always here on LinkedIn. Reach out to us anytime.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Joe and Tara. Oops. All right. So moving on. I just want to go over some of our past events that we had since we started last month. We've been having monthly events at channel side. There's a food trucks because it's just like an easy place for everyone to get together. There's a lot of great food options in town. And then our second event, we had a hackathon get together where we actually drove to Orlando for a telecommunications hackathon, and we ended up winning $4,400 between all of our teams. So that was pretty awesome. And we then had another sponsor through the W3C actually. We're members of the W3C. We actually held it over at South Howard at Rose Bar. So that was a really cool venue too. But this is going to be our first technical talk. And moving forward, we're going to have a technical talk probably once every month. So yeah. So kind of just about Tampa Devs. What is it? Oh, I'm not sharing my screen. Oh my God. Oh my God. See, there's so many things that could just. Oh my God, I didn't even realize I'm not sharing my screen. Okay, sorry. Yeah, I didn't even realize that the screen wasn't being shared the entire time. Anyways, this is a slide deck. Can you guys see it? You can see, I can see on your screen, Lydia. Okay, so I just want to mention collaboration with React.js Tampa and thank our sponsors today, ReliQuest, and Joe and Tyra were speaking earlier about it. And yeah, and then I just want to showcase some of the past events that we've had. So this is going to be, I think, our fifth event. This is our fifth event. And just a little bit about Tampa Devs. We kind of started as a group of friends in tech. Like we just met together frequently. We actually met through dancing, believe it or not. And a lot of dev friends that we had were just dancers, and we just met through that. And it got to the point that someone joked, "Hey, why don't we just start an official group and make it official and like actually have sponsors and technical talks for people in the community to actually get together and learn from each other and grow together. So we ended up starting it about a month ago. Our first event was actually September 16th. It was September 16th, I believe. And since then, we've grown to 180 members on Meetup. And we're actually having growing partnerships with tech communities in town. So more to come on that. Also, we have a new site. It is over at tampadevs.com. It looks super dope, in case you haven't seen it yet. So this is actually filmed shots that we've taken between the first two events and just different devs in Orlando and also in Tampa. So check it out whenever you get a chance if you want to look at it. Yeah. And next part. Yeah, there's Ryan. All right. So I just want to showcase that. So we got a new site up. We also have t-shirts as well. I'm actually wearing one. If you want one, they're $20. That's just pretty much how much it costs me to print them off. So hit me up if you want it or want to buy a t-shirt. And we have a Slack group. It's tampa-dev/.slack.com. Feel free to join that if you want to be more a part of the community. And we also have a call for speakers. So we actually have 2 speakers lined up for the next event in December and potentially in January as well. And we're doing 2 speakers per event. But if you're interested in doing a technical talk, just email us or just hit me up after the meeting. And it's a great way to build your resume and also get your name in town and also like showcase like some of the skills that you have to potential recruiters. And that's kind of actually what helped me get my first job, is actually through networking and actually doing a technical talk. So definitely keep that in mind if you're interested. We definitely need speakers. And just kind of like moving forward, like some of the things that we're doing for Tampa Devs, or at least that are outlined. We're going to have one networking event per month, and this is probably going to be the one channel site that we've been having already. And then one technical talk a month as well. So in that technical talk, there's gonna be like 1 or 2 speakers. So yeah, definitely hit us up if you want to be a part of that. We're open to new future networking events and ideas. So if you have any ideas of places that you'd like to see it be held at, whether it's on like east side of Tampa or west side of Tampa, or just different spots that you've heard of in town that are interesting and cool, definitely like hit us up on that as well. And for a future tech talk, we actually are partnering with Embark Collective. They're an incubator in town. Before COVID hit, they had like, it's a really nice incubator in town. Yeah, I haven't been there since COVID, but they used to have events that spanned 200 plus people, and they had entrepreneurs, developers, people in business space, like everyone kind of joined in the same like collaborative environment. So we're having talks with them right now for December 1st, and we already have speakers lined up for that. And we have social media as well. It's at Tampa Devs. Currently we use Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Meetup. And then we also have a hashtag, hashtag Tampa Devs. And for our talk, just kind of like a brief intro of like how we're segmenting it. So there's going to be the main talk, which is what I'm presenting today. And then we'll also open the round for lightning talks. So if you have like something interesting that you've been working on, like a side project, or like you've seen a really cool website or library and you want to talk about it, like right after the initial talk, like feel free to do that. And it could be like anywhere from like 5 to 15 minutes long. And then afterward, we'll just open the round for networking. So that's pretty much it. Yeah, so back to the presentation at hand. I'm going to actually, oh, sorry, I should stop sharing my screen again, sorry. Hold on. How do I exit full screen? Yep. Does anyone have any questions before we move on to the presentation? Nope, no one has questions. It's kind of hard because like I'm looking over here and I'm looking here at the same time. I don't know which one to look at. All right. Okay. So, all right, so for the presentation, sorry. So this presentation is on SVGs, everything you should know. Like, blow up full screen.
Question, Ben.
Yeah,
What
go
was
ahead.
the Slack again? Was it just Tampa Dev?
Oh, it is over at tampa-devs.slack.com. Yeah, we tried to go for tampa-devs.slack.com, but someone took it. I don't know, like who took it, but someone took it already. So it's tampa-devs. So go in there if you definitely want to just chat with different members of the community. We also post all of our events through there, and we also do a lot of our planning through Tampa Dev Slack. All right. Any other questions? Nope. Okay. All right. So for the presentation, this is SVGs, everything you should know. I don't know how to enter full screen though. Like, how do I do this? Like, I don't know. It's like, I feel like I could like build websites and I can scale out applications, but I don't know the simplest of IT things. Okay, hold on. F11? Is it F11? It's not F11, is it? No, that's Windows. Windows is F12.
Oh, on
I'm
Mac,
hosting on Windows. On a Mac, what is it?
there should be a green button at the top left of your window.
Oh,
Not in the menu.
oh, view. Oh, okay. Enter full. Oh, wow. It's. Oh, well, this is full screen. Okay, I guess
think
it
you
doesn't
should be able
matter.
to do-
Whatever. Whatever. It doesn't matter. Okay, so this is SVGs, everything you should know. You can just ignore all the stuff up top. So, kind of disclaimer: I'm not really an expert on everything related to SVGs. It's like a really deep rabbit hole, and I'm just hitting the surface of what it's actually capable of. Who knows what SVGs are? Does anyone know in the room knows what it is? What is it?
I know it stands for Scalable Vector Graphics.
Scalable Vector Graphics. Yeah.
And then I just know that like it's like little icons and stuff, right?
Little icons. Okay. And what were you saying, Ryan? You raised your hand.
You just said if we know it, yes. Yes, I know it.
Okay. So Scalable Vector Graphics or Scalable Vector Graphics, right? So you're talking about like icons that can be shown on a website, either really small or really big, and they're described mathematically, right? So you could scale it up or down however you want. And they're used as logos, they're used in animations, they're used in web applications across the board. And I'll cover more of it or what its different use cases are. So I'm going to go over the fundamentals of what Scalable Vector Graphics do and what they are, as well as some of the examples you should know as a developer or designer when you're working with SVGs. So I guess the question is first, like, why do we care about SVGs? Like, why even bother learning this topic? And I want to cover over kind of like the things that you should know ahead of time. Whenever you're describing a website, right, you want your website to be easily communicatable to someone who's going on the site for the first time, right? You want it to be a great user experience. You want it to, be easily understood and to get the message across to the user, right? And to do that, you should know, some of the things that make the web great. For instance, SVGs, animations, learning how to scale out a web application, React, for instance. So we solve problems through software, right? We solve these business problems, these UX problems. And again, like one thing that you should have in mind is great UX comes from great animations, right? Or solving those business cases. And mastery of that requires knowledge in these three topics in particular, for at least some parts of the front end. I mean, there's obviously much more, but when we're talking about interactive elements on a website, and by mastering those skills, you can open yourself up to more meaningful projects and opportunities. So SVGs, like you're saying, Scalable Vector Graphics, Justin, right? It is actually in an XML-based image format, and this was developed by the W3C in 1999. This is just a Wikipedia definition. But when you're talking about scalable vector graphics, you want to talk about another topic first. You want to talk about, oh, sorry, that was the next slide. Scalable vector graphics stands for scalable vector graphics, which scalable means it can be rendered any size or resolution. Vector in that it's described mathematically, and then graphics in the sense that it's an image or it's used in some sort of viewable format. And when you want to describe SVGs, the first thing you want to describe in comparison to SVGs or something that's really compared in common or used with SVGs or against SVGs is bitmap images. So the difference between a bitmap image and an SVG goes down to this principle. An image like a PNG file or a JPEG or a TIFF or whatever, when you're describing an image like that, right, you're describing like different algorithms that describe where those pixels on an image lie, right? And if you take a small bitmap image, let's say it's like 50 by 50, and you blow up to like 500 by 500 px on a page, it's going to look really distorted and bloated, right? But with a scalable vector graphic, because it's described mathematically, like in a mathematical formula or just a mathematical way, you could take a really small vector, right, and you scale it up as much as you want. So if you want to blow up like a scalable vector graphic on like a widescreen football, the television set, right, you could do that. It doesn't matter like how big or small it is, right? And SVGs are good because they can be written in native markdown and written in native web code. And I'll give you some examples of this too. And you can control them with CSS and JavaScript. Some of the other things about SVGs, you can edit them in Sketch or Adobe Illustrator or Figma. You can display them in image viewers or web browsers. And it's an open format that anyone can use. So I'm going to show you an actual live example of an SVG like being built, and then how to export it, and then how to show that in an actual coding environment. Okay. So I'm actually a terrible designer. I can't draw for shit, but okay. So I have this application right now called Figma, and I didn't log in. Great. I didn't log into anything today. I don't usually use my Mac to develop, so nothing is ever set up. So in case you're not familiar with Figma, Figma is a tool for designing mockups to showcase to say like a developer, hey, this is what I want the mobile application to look like, or this is what I want the web app to look like, right? And it's a design tool. So what do you guys want me to draw? I'm just asking the audience, like, what do you want me to draw on the screen? Do you want me to, like, name some images? A butterfly. Okay, that sounds really hard. Okay. Let's have a vote. Let's have a vote. Well, see, I didn't actually draw the logo myself, so I will draw a circle. I'll draw a circle in a circle. There you go. And yeah, I'll draw an arrow, like a little arrow, like his left eye arrow, like a little arrow thing for his eye, and then I'll draw like an eye patch, and then we'll just say that's a logo. So, okay. We're gonna overly simplify, guys. So, okay. Okay, so let's just say this is the logo, right? And this is the circle, right? This is the shape. His face, and then he's got an eye patch, right? And his eye patch is black, right? And he's got two lines, one here, and oh my god, I can't do this. And let's say the stroke width is 5, or let's say it's 10. There you go, 10. And let's say there's another vector here. Okay, would you say that's a great logo? It looks beautiful, right? Okay, So this is what a designer will do, right? And I'm oversimplifying it because designers do way more than this. I'm a terrible designer. So, a designer will spend much more time refining this logo inside of Figma or Sketch or whatever, right? And then they'll send it off to the developer to then like import into their project, et cetera, et cetera. So I want to showcase like what this actually looks like when you export this file. So if you click this, Figma has this tool called export. And you see how there's like different, you have a frame, right? And I'm kind of giving you like a brief overview of like how like Illustrator or Figma or all these design tools work. They usually have like a canvas, right? And this canvas is this white element on the page. And within the canvas, you have different like objects in there, right? So you have a line here, a circle or ellipse, and then another circle or ellipse, right? So what you could do is, a common thing you'll do as a designer is you'll actually group all these together because they're all related to the same thing, the logo, and you'll hit Command G, and then it'll create a group, right? And that group has a bunch of stuff in there. And then after you do that, you'll export this off to a developer usually. And so there's an export tool on this application. Like any application has this export tool usually. And if you hit export, you can save that file to downloads. Let's call it group 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And yeah, and then here is the code. Here's the code to act like what got exported, right? You have those 4 things that I drew. I drew a line like that, a line here, a circle here, and another circle, right? And you could see that those are all defined within this SVG exported code. And if I actually take this code right here that I have in my code editor, and I bring it up to an actual website, and I just ignore this, whatever I have right here now, and I actually paste it, and I save it, theoretically, yeah, there you go, I have a logo. So that's what an SVG is, or that's how you take like an asset that a designer made in like an Illustrator or Figma or Sketch or whatever into an actual coding environment, right? If you want to display this SVG live to the web, you can just do that. You just copy paste it, throw it in there. And there are a lot of other things you could do with SVGs. You can shrink it down, just like any other CSS or any other HTML elements. You could transform it if you wanted to, like that. You can even rotate it. Yeah, so kind of the sky's the limit, right? You can do whatever you want. It's literally HTML. And this HTML is described by this SVG spec here, where it's got the different elements kind of laid out, and you could target different parts of it. So for instance, if I want to target the circle, the eye patch, well, let's just say like the last eye patch, I could do like a last of type, and I could say like fill red or something, and theoretically it will just change that one. So if you want like a Terminator looking logo, or you want like HAL or whatever, the options is limitless. You could just take whatever the designer wrote and you just make it whatever you want. So SVGs are very flexible in that there's a lot of functionality associated with it. So that's kind of like a quick demo of what an SVG is, or how to actually take it from like a design outlet or design tool over to like a production environment. And then you can also apply JavaScript to it as well if you want to like target an element and like have it rotate at a certain interval. I don't know how to do that offhand because I'm just like, I don't remember how to write that, so I'm not going to do it unless I looked it up. So that's what that is. Does anyone have any questions so far before I get on the next section? Anyone, any questions? Yeah, what's up?
Optimistic question. For those of us who also suck at design, is there a way to convert bitmaps to SVGs?
Yeah, you can actually convert bitmaps to SVGs using, I believe, machine learning. Like there's ways to actually transpile that. I don't know how that works though, but I've seen tools online where I've taken like an actual bitmap, or I screenshotted an image and I just like once like copy or re-vectorize that logo, because normally like you'd have to send it to the designer to then like trace over it by hand. So I just like threw it in a tool online and like said, hey, will this tool actually work? And it works sometimes. Like sometimes you get like a billion lines that you don't care about. It just depends on the logo. Like if the logo is simple like this, where you can like discretely define every vector, it's simple. But let's say you have like a checkered pattern like logo with very crazy shading in the background, like you can't really vectorize it. Oh, you could, but it's gonna be like a billion different vectors and it's gonna look really ugly. So it depends on the image. So some images are easy to vectorize, some aren't. Like logos are easy to vectorize. If you want to vectorize like an image of like the city landscape, good luck with that. It's probably a terrible idea. Because you have to define like every little like building line, and then like every that'll take way too long. Like every window, and like it's easier just to describe it in terms of like this is a color of this pixel, and this is a color of that pixel, and just leave it at that. It's actually some vectors like for like a logo like this, you want to vectorize it. But if you convert it to a bitmap, it's probably going to be a bigger file. Like it just depends on how much stuff there is and how you can describe it mathematically. That makes sense. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah, what's up?
So are animations just SVGs that have JavaScript applied to them?
Not necessarily. So like you don't have to use SVGs to run animations. An animation can just be like a transform, like rotate 90 degrees at like an interval, right? An SVG just gives you more functionality, and if you want like a special shape, right, you could just make like a rectangle, like width 100, height 100, background color black, and then you rotate it, and then that's little. You could just not use an SVG in that case, right? Or you could just take an image and just throw an image up there and rotate it. But there's lots of things you can animate. Like you can animate like background colors, for instance, like box shadows, sizing, if you want to make it like grow in size or decrease in size, right? And they don't have to be specific to SVGs. I do have an example actually where like I also run a podcast, and I actually had to like animate an SVG now that I think about it. And you wouldn't think that you would use an SVG in that case to animate it. So this is a podcast I run with one of my friends in Orlando. When you hover over it, you notice like, I don't know if you notice that effect, like it doesn't create the border like around the entire thing. It actually goes in like a little rectangular clockwise circle. Can you guys see that? You guys can see that, right? Let me. Yeah, but like you see it like the lines like don't all come at the same time. Like not all four edges come at the same time. It actually goes to the top and then the right and then the left, or the bottom and then the left, right? And if you inspect that code right here, I actually threw an SVG on here, somewhere on here, right here. There's an SVG right here. And I'm describing like the rectangle property and like how that thing is going to animate. It's been a while since I wrote this. I don't remember, but I remember distinctly I had to write an SVG for it because it was like a weird case scenario. So that's one example. And so if I delete this, if I just delete this element, it's not going to work anymore because it's the SVG is what is creating that thing. Does that make sense? So that's like one thing you can do in SVGs. There's like many other applications, but if you want something that has a lot of rich functionality in terms of animations or in terms of like targeting like a specific circle or a specific like icon, then you want to use an SVG. And you'll usually tell your designer, hey, just export the code for me and I'll do the rest. Because usually the developer does the animations and everything else. But yeah, any other questions before I move on?
I have a question.
Yeah, what's up?
In the spirit of being here at the light because this is essentially code and you said it can interact with JavaScript stuff, is there anything malicious you can potentially do with SVGs?
Not anything that you can do in regular HTML. So, I mean, technically you can write like an inline script tag on it. Like, no, you can execute, forgot. images, you can actually execute JavaScript, if I'm not mistaken. Like that's like, if you've ever seen like, yeah, that's for like React. You can use like style components. That's just like for encapsulating CSS in a component. But I'm talking about like security vulnerabilities.
So that they like cross-site scripting and things like that.
Yeah, that's usually no. You can't do it. You couldn't do anything that you couldn't do in regular HTML. But you can run an attack through an image, right? Because if you I just had a conversation with someone the other day about this, how like you can actually like, it's been a while since I've done anything security related, so I have to refresh myself on how that works. But I remember when we had to write like a sanitization HTML script at work, we had to actually sanitize any images that were coming in from the server because we couldn't necessarily trust it. And that was because you can write a there's a way to embed a script in an image. I believe I don't know if anyone knows this offhand. Like like an image has like a like you compress it to like a 64-bit format, and then when that I don't remember exactly how it works, but like that process you can have a script that runs from an image. I don't remember how. I've looked it up before, but I'm kind of rusty at that though.
About like user uploaded images.
No, like, yeah, I'd have to look it up though. It's been a while since I've done that. I don't know if anyone wants to correct me. I could be wrong.
Most likely,
anyone?
it's an uploaded image, because if you're uploading anything as a user, it's being evaluated in a sense on the back end. So that's why you would need to sanitize it. There's nothing you can, you can't really provide a static image. Like, let's just say I have a very simple React website that has an SVG. You provide a URL for that SVG, and I mean, if you're providing it to your user, you're pretty much saying this is a safe image to use. There's like, so what you're doing is that you're providing something that the user will go fetch on their browser. And if you're saying this is the SVG you need to use, you're essentially either telling the browser to go to one of your own images, hopefully, or if you link to an external website, right, then you're depending on the security of that website, which could be a trust issue. So
there you go.
It's not. It's better if you make a whole website, you host your own files, and if users are uploading anything, you have to sanitize it.
Yeah. So SVGs could be used as images, and then images are exploitable. That's what I was trying to get to. Does that sound right, Ryan? Yeah, but SVGs themselves aren't like, you can't, they're just HTML at the end of the day. You can't, like anything you would be able to exploit in an HTML environment, it would be the same thing. So in that case, it's not really any less secure. That's your question. All right. Any other questions? Nope. All right. So I want to just go over like some of the common shapes that you see in SVGs. So like you saw earlier, in that embedded code, there was we had the circle property, and that was created when I just drew the circle on the application and then exported it. And then there's also lines as well, right? So there are different elements within that SVG tag that describe how that SVG is formed on the page. And next slide. Okay, so there's 3 ways to use an SVG, and this goes to the thing you were talking about earlier, Ryan. When you're using an inline SVG, that is literally just basically straight HTML. It's what I exported and put it on the page. But you can use SVGs other ways. So SVGs are sometimes used as images, and you can actually embed or you can actually use like a background image property in CSS and actually just put your SVG code inside of there, and that'll be valid as well. or you can actually say like image source is equal to SVG code, right? And that's the third way to use an SVG. When you're talking about functionality, if you want like animation components or like really rich functionality in an SVG, you'll usually do the first option here. The second and third option is usually if you're just like, oh, the designer gave me a logo and it's an SVG format. Okay, I'll just throw it up there. That's usually when you use like the second or third option because you just want a logo on a page, right? But if you want something richer, you want to work with an inline SVG, and that's what I showed earlier, like how to modify it and change like the circle to red, et cetera, et cetera. Wanted to, what's here? Oh, here's another example. Have you guys ever seen this at the airport? Like you're in the bathroom and like you're walking out and you see this little thing and it's like, how was your bathroom experience, right? I mean, why would anyone why would anyone ask that? I don't know. But sometimes you see it at airport checkports and it's like, how was your TSA experience? And you're just like, why are you making me do this? But they're trying to collect surveys and they're trying to collect feedback, right? And you notice like there's, you know, 4 faces, right? There's the I'm trying to like move this thing out of the way. There's 4 faces. There's like a smiley face and like, you know, I'm sort of happy face. And then there's like, okay, this kind of sucks. And then this really sucks, right? You can actually describe those faces in a vectorized format or an SVG. So I actually wrote this a while back where I actually was trying to like learn how SVGs work. And I wrote this like smiley face / frowny face little tool set where I could like render the SVG code and make them smile and frown. So it's literally just like it's like an arc, right? It's like a semicircle. And then it's either like this way or that or the other way, right? And there's like all the different variations in between. I wrote some code for that where in case you're curious, like I actually like mapped out like how that little smiley face actually worked. And it ended up being a lot of code, literally for just writing that, in case you're curious. Yeah, anyways, I don't recommend anyone to do that because it's a lot of work. You should use a library. But when you're describing that smiley face, right? There's different types of SVG code. There's what I call human readable code, and then there's what I call machine or less human readable code, like code that you can't really understand if you're looking at it. So this is right here, like the circle, like that's pretty understood, like, you know what that is. It's a circle, there's a radius, there's a starting center X point and a center Y point with CXCY. Radius is just like whatever that number comes out to. Stroke is like, you know, the outside stroke, and then the width, and then the fill color of yellow. But and the eyes are pretty simple too, right? But when you're talking about the smiley face part, that part is really convoluted when you're looking at it and you're trying to read the code on a website or you're just inspecting on the DOM and you're like, what is all this? D is equal to M-20 minus 10 C-20 10 20 10. You know, it's like it's a bunch of garbage you can't understand, right? Like, can you guys make what those are? No? Anyone have an idea what those are?
Magnitude and direction?
So I'll actually cover that in the next slide. M stands for the beginning point. Yeah, I'll actually describe it in the next slide. It stands for it stands for the start point, and then C stands for cubic Bezier. Don't worry about that. I'll show you what it is in the next slide. I just want to let you know, like when you actually inspect an SVG on a website, like inline SVG, you might run across some weird looking code, and this is just one example on a simple like smiley face, for instance. Right. I forgot how transitions there. Anyways, let's say I have this SVG on this page, right? It's just super simple. Like you can kind of just read it and kind of get a feel for it. But it looks kind of like one of those like heart rate monitors. It's like going up and down. It's like, oh, he's dead, right? Right. But like when you're describing an SVG like that, or an SVG like this, how would you describe it, right? You could describe it using what's called a path element. And there is something called a grouping tag. So grouping tags are like different sections of code that makes sense. When you're exporting off from like from Illustrator or from Figma or Sketch, whenever you hit like Control G and like you clump them up together, that's what it does when you export it. It just gives you a G tag surrounding your other layers. Oh, shoot. Okay. And I want to go over what this stuff is right here, this D stuff. So there's actually a tool online that actually covers kind of how this works. And I want to showcase this. So this is that same curve thingy, right? And you see, this is really hard to read, but you see all this stuff right here. That's that same path code earlier. Why is this? That's that same path code earlier, right? So if I were to modify this point right here, if you could see that last number right here, the 450 at the bottom, it actually changes, right? You see that? Can you guys see that? I have this loading thing on here. I don't know what that's coming from, but oh yeah, yeah, I forgot what that tool is called. I don't know why it's, yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, that's why that thing is popping. Okay, there you go. So, oh my God, why does it keep doing that? Live demos never work the way you want them to work. Okay, but you could see, this is the first time I ran into this problem. Okay, you could see, okay, you could see that like it's modified, right? You see those numbers at the bottom, on the bottom right here, they're being changed. I just want to prove a point that when you modify and move those points around, that code changes, right? And I want to cover how that actually works. So I'll go to the next slide and show it. So this is a significantly more simpler example to understand, right? I just showed that really complicated one so you can kind of appreciate that it's very complicated. Anyways, I kind of made this a little bigger at the bottom right, and I just modified some CSS. Anyways, this is just a line, right? A line with 3 points, right? It has these numbers right here. It says M100, 300L, 200, 300L, 300, 300. Does anyone want to take a shot at like what those numbers mean? Anyone want to take a shot at what we think those mean? Yeah, Trevion?
So they all have 300 in common, so I assume that that's the, I don't know, they're all on the 300.
Yeah.
And the 100, 200, 300 is the points.
Yeah. So that's describing a y-axis, right? So you're right. So like so this is a coordinate grid, right? So this is an XY coordinate, or this is an XY value, right? And there's not a coordinate thing on here that says like this is, you know, what the scale is, but every two white block thingies on the page right here, these little block thingies, every two of those is 100, whatever the value is. I don't know. It's just a number. So this right here is at the 100x coordinate, and this is at the 200x coordinate, and then this is at the 300x coordinate, right? But on the y value, like the other axis, these are all like going up to, like, yeah, these are all 300 from the bottom, like, if that makes sense. So that's the y-axis. So like if there was like a number system, this is like 100 right here, this is 200, and this is 300, and then these all lie on the 300, like 300 axis. I don't know how to describe it, but it's an XY coordinate grid. These are X coordinates and these are Y coordinates. So next thing I want to show is, I don't know what happened there. Anyways, next thing I want to show is kind of like what you could do with this. So there's different types of things you can modify in this line. We have line, which is L. We also have this thing called Q, which stands for quadratic Bezier, which is kind of like describing like an arc of some point and how it's pulled away from it. There's a mathematical formula. I don't know how to describe it though, but you can kind of see what it does on the page, right? It modifies some values right here. You can also use a cubic Bezier, which is described by the smile. So if you want to have like a frowny smile, that's what a frowny smile might look like. A little bit kind of overinflated, but you get the point. And then if you want like a regular smile, right? it might look like that. And that's how you describe like the code in the smiley face example, where you have everything past the C point that describes it. And I'll go over more like what those actually are. And there's also an arc. Arc is pretty straightforward. It's just like between these 2 points, there's like a radius, and then that's describing like a half circle. That's basically what it describes. But if you're kind of curious what those all mean, there's actually a list of like curve commands that describe what those values correlate to. So like Q or C stands for like the smiley face part, like either smiling or frowny, and that's using a cubic Bezier. There's quadratic, T, and then elliptical arc. You don't really have to know any of that, but like in case you ever read SVG code and you're like, what is all this garbage code that's coming out? Or what is all this non-human readable code coming out? It at least will give you some insight that, you know, you probably don't really need to care how to read it. Just the fact that it's doing this behind the scenes, if that makes sense. And if you ever build like a more like sophisticated application, like a drag and drop GUI with like points that connect to each other, you probably have to learn this, but most people don't have to learn it. But it's really good to know so that you could ignore it basically and not have to think about it. And you let your sketch app, your Figma app do all the work for you, and then you appreciate all the stuff that goes behind the scenes. That's basically what I'll try to get to. So other things with SVGs, if you do like an inline SVG where you have like the actual like HTML on the page, right? You can do a lot of cool stuff with it. You can throw in a library and you can do animations. You could morph your SVG at will because they're all vectors and they're all described mathematically. So you can just do it. You can do whatever you want with it. You can animate a line drawing if like someone drew like a line arting on like a sketch app or like and exported it off as an SVG. You can actually animate the whole thing, which is pretty cool. You can do animations as well, like any other HTML component using just pure CSS. You can have easing functions. That's pretty much it. There's like the main things I want to go through is like these three, the motion paths. These are unique to SVGs. That was actually kind of shown on this page when I highlighted over it on that element. That is actually that thing right there where it was like going like this. That is actually a kind of similar to the motion path. And then morphing, line drawings, etc. So there's usually libraries for these, and you want to use a library because as you saw earlier, you have to write a lot of like really weird code to like actually do what you wanted to do. So I recommend that you use a library. Anyways, there's 3 ways to animate an SVG. Like I said earlier, this is the GitLab logo. I don't know if you're like on to gitlab.com and then like hovered over the actual logo itself, the little tanuki. It actually animates. Nobody really necessarily actually looks through that and actually sees it unless you actually do it, unless you hover over it. But you can, like any other element, like these are all described as different like SVG elements, and you can like describe the fill and the transition properties because they're just straight HTML. And you can hover over it and then apply those properties. Or you can actually do like a CSS keyframe or animation where you kind of like make it grow at a certain interval, et cetera, et cetera. This one is more of like something that occurs recurringly. Or you can use the whole JavaScript method of manipulating your attribute data or your path data to like make it do whatever you want. That's what most libraries do because it's more flexible, but it's gonna come at a factor of being very complicated. But that's why you use a library. You let the library do all the work for you. And next slide, hold on. So there are different tools for in conjunction with SVGs. So one popular tool actually is to do a lot of like your crazy animation effects in After Effects. Because After Effects is used in like video production for like an intro banner or like an outro banner and all sorts of like crazy special SFX effects for like movies. And because it's so powerful, there's actually a plugin that goes right on top of it that you can actually export SVG code, SVG animatable code. And I want to showcase like one example of that looks like. They use this in application like iPhone apps or like Android apps, like the little SVGs that you see pop up on the screen. So here's an example. This is literally just a container in HTML. The CSS looks very simple. It's just a container, some basic modifications, and then the JavaScript is literally one line. So, I mean, it's not necessarily just one line. There's actually like an import statement that like imports like a one-liner library that's exported from Lottie, which is like the plugin. So if I go to resources, you can actually see it's coming from here, right? This, whatever this JavaScript code is. So that's some of the powerful functionality of using an SVG exporter through After Effects. Like you could just do like crazy stuff like this in After Effects and then just export it off and then just see it live on a web page. Here's another example. Like this is literally, you can see the JavaScript code is just really simple. It just loads in this thing that got created from that tool set. So there are other tools as well. There's one called SVG Gator, which you kind of like design your SVGs in like the Sketch app, and you can actually export off like an SVG that does animations. So for instance, this is it's very, you can't really read this, but like it does a lot of like CSS transforms that run one time. If I click this button right here, I don't know why it's not working. Oh no, you have to subscribe. Hold on, there you go. See that animation that runs here? You can actually create that in the application and then export that off as SVG. So just more powerful functionality of things you can do with SVGs. So when you're talking about performances, with SVGs, you always want to talk about like, hey, I don't want to have like a huge page load on the screen, right? Because if you're serving up an application to like, I don't know, 10 million users, you don't want to have like a 5 megabyte image, right? That's just really dumb. You want to like think about how compressed those files are, how little you have to serve so you can have a fast loading experience and not like clog up your bandwidth usage on your server. Anyways, when you're working with SVGs, they could be very, very minified. So for instance, this SVG right here, this is only 6 kilobytes, right? Because they're just lines that describe mathematically how that image is created, right? You could also, for instance, use a GIF to handle the same effects, and you can also like loop that GIF one time instead, but that could be like a really, really big payload. Or you can use Lottie, which when it exported off from After Effects, it's like 200 kilobytes, which is not too crazy. So those are just some things to consider when you're talking about performances. This is a code pen by Sarah Drasner, and this is all written with SVGs. And SVGs actually have another feature called distortion filter, which no, it's called Gaussian distortion filter. So if you want to give like a blurring effect on a page, or you want like a video to look like it's like from the 1950s, you can apply a filter overlay on top of a video player or an image, and you can like actually change all the colors on the video. So SVGs have a lot of powerful functionality that most people aren't aware of. So this is one example. It's the distortion part that I was showing you right here. When you hit start and then like all those things come up, that part where it just like blurs out, that's like an SVG overlay that's on top of it. There are other use cases for SVGs. So if you ever use d3.js, which is for data science people, for describing, hey, I want to showcase like this data in a way that's visual and understandable, et cetera, et cetera. D3.js is powered primarily from SVGs, but it does use another tool called HTML Canvas behind the scenes. But all those examples right here, I haven't looked at the site in a while, but like you see all these like fancy graphing tools for showcasing how image or how data can be represented. D3.js is actually primarily driven by SVGs behind the scenes under the hood. So that's just a more powerful functionality you can use. And oh, you can also like download SVGs from Flat Icon too. Alternatives. So alternatives, you know, you don't have to use SVGs. There are other things you could use. CSS sprites, for instance, are something that you should be aware of. If you're working with like, you know, 10 million people hitting a website, you don't want to have like 10 icons on the page because they might each take up a couple, like, I don't know, like 100 kilobytes each, but that adds up like really quickly when you have so many people hitting your site. So what you could do is actually, if you go on Amazon.com and you inspect your page, you can actually see how they created like this little icon here for like, you know, where you're located, and the little menu bar. It's got like 3 little bars. You even got like a logo for like your English or Spanish on the little web thingy, and you've got this you've got the Amazon logo itself. So they actually, if you actually look through the source code or look at what's actually available on the DOM, I actually just grabbed this right off Amazon. They have different images all on one image file, right? And you can define like, hey, I want this little sector to show on the page, and I want this sector to be used for this part of the image. It's just all one image, but you're just using it as multiple images from that image. That makes sense. So pretty cool functionality. And you can see kind of like where it's highlighted from, and it's really small. Other cool things, fonts and emojis, also primarily driven by SVGs. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Any other questions? Any questions, anybody? Oh, I didn't realize I didn't plug my Mac. Wow. I didn't think about this, but my battery is like at 10%. Anyways, does anyone have any questions before my battery dies? No?
Where they can find tools to play around with. I'm not sure.
Oh yeah, I put a bunch of links. Oh, I need to get my laptop charger real quick. It's gonna literally die like in like 5 seconds. No, I got it. I just need a power outlet. Yeah. Anyone have any questions on Zoom? Anyone have any questions? Nobody?
I'll ask the generic question.
Yeah, what's up?
You're gonna share slides.
Oh yeah, I'll send them over. Let me send them over right now, actually, before I forget. I think it's just this. Is it just this? I'm not even sure. Hold on. How do I exit full screen? How do I exit presentation
Command
mode?
Shift F. Command Shift
I don't
F.
know how to exit. I think it's this link. I could be wrong. I'm not sure. Let me just copy paste this again. Oh, it's not what I'm looking for. How?
You're missing the
Oh,
live.
there. There. Exit. Exit. Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing, honestly.
Copy the live part, everything before the hashtag in the URL.
Oh, right. Right. There you go. Live. Oh, there you go. Wait. There is actually like there's like an actual. Oh, there you go. Oh, there you go. It's right here. Oh, wait, that's the first. Hold on. Not this one. Use this one. There you go. And I'll put it on the meetup too, as well. There you go. All right. Any other questions?
More about how they're using one file but putting multiple SVGs and then you're choosing which SVG.
Oh, that one? that's actually, that one actually isn't an SVG. That's actually something called a image sprite. I just wanted to mention it just because when you're talking about performance on an application, usually you'll use an SVG. But if you have a bunch of tiny icons on a page, it's not really that efficient to have like 10 SVGs for each icon, like 10 SVGs for 10 icons on a page. It's better to just have like one image, throw all the images inside of there. So there's actually a tool called Sprite Gen. There's like 2 or 3 different ones where I like Sprite Cow actually. Sprite Cow. There you go. I don't actually have an image example to pull up, and I don't know what's in my download folder, honestly. I don't have anything crazy in there, but at the same time, I don't want to pull it up and go, okay, let me pull up this sensitive information. Because like, I might have some like work downloaded files on there. Yeah, let me put the screenshot that I use for work. Yeah, okay, we put that here. No. Oh yeah, there's a show example. Perfect. So I can click. Okay, so you see that right here. So it's like, this is the image. This whole thing is the image, but then they give you like a bunch of CSS properties where like, hey, grab this image and grab it at this position. The 430, negative 433, negative 51. So that's like, imagine that the image has having like an XY grid. So I don't know exactly how that's defined, but it's like defined, I think like at the top left, and then negative is right. And then it's negative 433, which is start from the top left, go right 433, and then go down 51. I don't know why it's negative, but a lot of XY coordinates on front end applications actually start from the top left. It's kind of counterintuitive. Yeah, what's up?
So for the sprite designing, theoretically, do that with an imported SVG file
Yeah.
as the source and use percentage-based coordinates to define sprites?
I think with like sprites, you actually have to define it as a bitmap image. It's not actually like, this is all like a bitmap image. Like when you import the SVG into here, it'll just like on this site, like if you, it'll just convert it to an image. It'll just like rasterize it and say like, here you go. So yeah, you don't use SVGs and bitmap, or sorry, sprites together, because sprites are by definition bitmap images. Yeah. What's up?
What was the name of the site where it was the grid and you were messing around with it? And
Oh yeah, I put it on the slides. It's actually a CodePen file. I don't know how I found it, but I found it when I was doing some research on it. If you go over to the slide deck, I'll actually just send a link to it right now. Hold on. I think it's present. Edit on CodePen. I didn't make this, by the way. Someone smarter than me wrote it. There you go. Oh, and I'll put it on the this is the CodePen SVG editor debugger or inspector tool. Right. All right. There you go. Any other questions?
Question. So on your animation example, kind of following up to his question, is the JavaScript call and change those coordinates to make the frown or the smile, or is that embedded in the SVG tag? Oh,
so that, I wish I made like an actual exported, like I wish I made like a CodePen file for this. I don't know why I did it. That over there, hold on, let me grab that. That right there, I actually had the source code. Hold on here. That's actually JavaScript. So like I wrote event listeners that would target that component, and I don't know why I didn't write the actual whole thing.
A function that changes those SVG parameters, basically say make it a frown or make it a smile.
Yeah, so basically, you know, in this example, there's like a path element. Sorry, where's that path element example? It's not here, it's here. what I did is I wrote an onChange function on the path, or no, I wrote an onChange slider somewhere else. Like there's a slider on the page, and then like that onChange function would literally just look at the D value and it just modified it. That's all it did. Yeah. Yeah, I could do it, but I have to like, it'll take me a while though.
I was curious if the function was doing that or
Yeah,
something.
yeah. So like there was like there's an so it would be an HTML slider on the page, and then that slider is then being registered by JavaScript, and then JavaScript is then modifying the path element, or the D part of the path element, and then it's just changing. It's literally just changing an attribute right here. So if you look through the code, I'll kind of go through it real quick. If you look through the code, it's like getting the attribute D right here, and it's setting it, and then it's also like, it's also, I forget how to do it. I don't remember. This is like the first time I've seen this in a year. It's like pre-penning the string together to make that whole like giant like machine unreadable human code. Yeah. Any other questions? And yeah, and then I wrote like a function for like describing that mathematically for like that frowny and that like smiley face. Oh, and I defined it right here. So I defined like some like base coordinates, and then I multiplied it by a factor. So that, because like if you think about it, it's like it's always on like the same x plane, but then the y gets like shifted on the ends like that. It's either like this or it's like that, right? So it's just like the ends are like the y's kind of change. That makes sense, depending on what your variable is essentially. So that variable is defined by factor. And then yeah, that's how it works in a nutshell. It's like, and that's just like, I mean, I had to write all those code just to do that one thing. So I was trying to make a point that you don't want to do this yourself. Use a library. Yeah. And then I also wrote this thing for like actually like converting that to the actual like path string. Like I did one for like, this is for calculating the math formula, like mathematically, and this is for converting it into like points on a grid. So it's kind of like, it's very complicated to look at. So I just, yeah. Anyways, any other questions? That was a good question though. Yeah, what's up? What's up, Gabe? I have no idea. It's black magic to me. And After Effects is written in I think it's written in C#, if I'm not mistaken, and then the tool is probably written in C#, and then it just does like the mappings from whatever is exported off from After Effects into SVG. So it's like I don't know how to describe it. That's all I know. That's my best guess at it. Everything else I'll just be like kind of guessing in the wild. But yeah, any other questions? Anyone from the virtual side want to ask questions? Oh, and then I was just gonna, so I shared the slides, and then here's my contact if you want to follow me, my GitHub and my LinkedIn, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, thanks guys. Are we still recording? I think we are still recording. Oh yeah. Oh, I didn't realize you're asking me. I thought you were asking so